All right, our guest is Rubin Benson. He's a graphic artist, he's a designer, he's an entrepreneur, he's an author, and he's a good friend of mine, full disclosure. Welcome to the program, brother. How are you today?
Oh, I'm fine. Yourself?
I'm good. Good. Good to see you, man.
It's good to be seen.
How about it? How about it?
Yes,
How about it? You're always doing something, so you've just come out with a new book, and you have several other books that you've done. And each project is unique. So you've done some of your work and some of the book covers for Philadelphia International, because you used to work for Gamble and Huff, and you used to design their album covers.
Yes.
So a lot of your work is included in that book. You did a book on the history of Minister Shabazz.
Yes.
And now you have a book on signatures, famous signatures, African American people. So what made you do that and choose that particular book and subject to do a book?
Actually, it goes back to I go in and out of art galleries and stuff a lot, and the auction houses. And there used to be an older gentleman there who owned an antique store, who every time I seen him in the gallery or the auction, he was always checking signatures of artists. And not only was he checking signatures, he had made himself up a little book of signatures. So when he went to look at art, he could literally see these different signatures. Well, at the time, I didn't pay it much attention, and I would ask him occasionally, like, "Can I see it?" He would show it to me, and it wasn't for sale. It was just something he had put together so that when he was going looking for someone's art, he would know what the signature looked like. From that point on, it really never even fazed me until maybe about 5 years ago or so. My granddaughter and my grandson had came to me, and he was so proud, showing me his signature, that he had finally learned how to write his name. And the pride that he had in just that sort of overwhelmed me, and so I started thinking, at what point did we really start writing? From slavery, we were not allowed to read or write. So at what point did African Americans start to literally scribe their name? And so I started basically doing some research and seeing how far back I could go to find an individual who was close to the date when reading and writing was made illegal in North Carolina. And it was made a law in North Carolina, and other states picked up that law and instituted it, at least down south. And it was illegal for anyone to teach an African how to read or write. In fact, if you were caught doing that, even if you was white, you was punished. You was fined, whipped, or both. And so that right there would tell you that, well, who's going to teach them? If they're going to suffer, who's going to teach them?
Right.
So it was like, people who cared about their slaves or whatever, there was almost like an underground school going on. And so within that underground school, individuals began to write their names. So I started, my first hunt was, I tried to find out what did Frederick Douglass' signature look like. I knew his date, I knew where he was, and I wondered if he could write his name. He may not have been able to write his name. And I found his signature. And so after realizing that, I started to go and look for others. And lo and behold, I started finding them. And so obviously they were being taught by somebody in the United States, because when they landed here, although some of them may have been that intelligent that they already had it when they got here, but that's kind of doubtful. Because if they're coming from Africa, they didn't really have it. But somebody took the time to teach. And I guess it was underground schools. I guess that's how that went. And it just started to pile up one after another. Every time I would find somebody, I would find their signature, and I said, wow, I didn't even know I could even find it, let alone. And so I just started to compile them. I just started to compile first the individuals that I was looking for. And then once I found a signature, I would match the signature with the individuals, and I just keep going until I got tired, basically.
Now, what's the earliest date, person, and the year that you found someone who a signature?
Earliest one I found was Alexander Miles. And what was so significant about him, he was born in 1838. Excuse me, 1830 the law took place. And so that gap in there, said, well, okay, in that gap, he wasn't allowed to read. He wasn't allowed to learn to read to write. So somewhere in there, somebody taught him how to do just that. And then not only was Alexander Miles, but he was the inventor of the elevator. So not only was I finding people, but I was also finding quote unquote celebrities, individuals who not only learned to write their name, but they were iconic amongst the African Americans, and they did more than just learn to write. They were significant within their communities. And when I found out that he was the inventor of the elevator, I said, whoa, okay. So he had to sign his patent papers, whether or not he owns them now, whether or not his family owns them now, had nothing to do with what I was trying to find. And so, and then I just kept hunting. You know, the older the better, you know, from Booker T. Washington to Frederick Douglass. And I just, you know, I kept finding these signatures.
Because your book has their signature and you also have a biographical sketch about them.
Right.
Is there a common thread that you've been able to discern about them, particularly the early ones in the 19th century who were victims of enslavement?
Well, I really, when I was putting it together, I really wasn't trying to draw any correlation between anything except I wanted to see their signature. And, you know, but then as I began to do their short bios, I began to realize that there was significantly, it had to be Caucasians teaching African Americans, Africans at that time, how to read and write, and it had to be underground. Because if it was above ground, like I said, the law would punish you for doing that. So not only did the teacher have to remain underground, but the student had to remain underground and act like he didn't know how to read or write.
Right.
So that became, you know, interesting. You know, I didn't dive into that because that would take me somewhere else. Basically, I just wanted to see what their signature looked like. And then, maybe 3 years before that, there was a guy out of London who had created the Sigmund Freud signature as a type font. And he was on a GoFundMe kind of page and that kind of thing. You know, of course, I sent some money off to him, you know, because if you funded him up to a certain point, he would send you the type font. If you funded up to another point, you would get the whole catalog. So I think his maximum was like $200. I gave him $200. So when he finally finished the font, he sent me the entire font of how Sigmund Freud wrote his name and how he would write. And he actually put together through, I guess, computerization, each character, each A, each B, so he finally came up with Sigmund Freud's handwriting and a type font. So in that type font, in the guy's description of Sigmund Freud, he mentioned that Sigmund Freud had mentioned that a person's signature, if you could psychologically go into it, would reflect the individual. And because he was into that, that's who Freud was. So I'm like, wow, okay. So now I got to circle the wagon back around and say, well, okay, that means each individual's signature, like Freud said, is like your thumbprint. There's no two the same. In other words, Rick, if you sign your name, you sign your name different than I would write my name. That's like a thumbprint. And it's that signature of your thumbprint becomes who you are. So that's why in this book, Sigmund Freud, underneath of each picture in the book, Sigmund Freud, how he would have wrote Frederick Douglass's name.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then, then on the opposite page was actually how the individual wrote their name.
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of carried that theme all the way through the book.
So how many signatures did you collect, and did you filter or pare them down to fit the book? Or how, so how many did you have to edit out before you finalized the book?
To be quite honest with you, I didn't edit any of them out. I had collected 117. No, you're right. I actually collected maybe 130 signatures. But through time, I couldn't put all of them together. I may have found the individuals but couldn't find the signatures. So the ones that I had that I absolutely knew was authentic was 117.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You just mentioned the word authentic. How were you able to document the authenticity of the signatures?
Well, a lot of these signatures appeared on documents.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So let's say the individual that invented, I went to the archives and found his signature. He had obviously signed. Now, as a caveat to that, I would dare say that I couldn't imagine somebody else signing for these individuals. That these are actually individuals. I couldn't. I mean, there's no absolute verification, but these are clearly signatures that are attached to these individuals' names.
Right.
Now, somebody would say, "Well, Rubin, you're an author. I don't even consider myself an author." Basically, I said I compile stuff. I can find things, put it together, and re-expose it to the community or the world just via the graphics. So I really wasn't thinking of myself as an author. I don't consider myself a writer. I just consider myself a person who, if I had to put in any other word, my mother used to work for she worked for the government as a hand embroiderer. And the title of her job was piecework. Whenever you said anything about it, I said, "Oh, that's just piecework." So I sort of took on that. So I take pieces and make a thing work. You know what I mean? And so that would be the basic theme that I would say that I'm attempting to do, is just keep creating the piecework that my mother did.
Now you self-published all of your books.
Right.
So, and when you completed this, have you looked at or have you explored the market for a book like this?
Oh, sure. It's been, listen, it's been, well, let me put it like this. Money is not my motivation. So book sales ain't necessarily my motivation.
Right, okay.
My motivation is completion. Complete a task. Take a task on that I want to do, that I think visually needs to be presented. Complete it till it becomes an actual product.
Right, a finished product.
A finished product. Now, whether or not it becomes successful, I really don't care about that. My main concern, it's like if I wasn't, well, I guess I am an artist. If I paint something, everybody ain't gonna like it. I mean, it will attract whoever it attracts.
Right.
It has nothing to, and so I visually think of each piece that I do as a piece of art. So if I complete the piece of art, I'm done with it. Now, if somebody else wants to get a hold of it, somebody else wants to buy it, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. That's why this particular book I did print on demand, as opposed to warehousing 1,000 books. Right. Because the last book I did, I had 2,000 books sitting on my third floor. Now, I've since gotten rid of all 2,000 books. Well, not all. I have about 300 books left of the Philadelphia International Records Gamble and Huff book. But so I'm making money over a period of time. I don't care, because it wasn't a money motivation. And to be quite honest with you, African American products are still a problem within the publishing industry. They still don't necessarily see us as readers. I mean, I'm gonna take that all the way back to that again. And like, well, they don't read that much. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So for us to
And
publish
the
a book,
other issue is they want to control the content. So when you look at what's being sold now, or there was several years ago, was the ghetto lit.
right?
You know, the sexual,
Sexual,
romantic, right, right, right.
right? Because they
So
think that's
yours,
who we are,
right,
right?
yeah, yeah, that's
So
part of
when
the
you bring a
stereotype.
book that's purely intellectual, then they know that it's directed to an intellectual audience. Book sales ain't the same
Right.
because if you design a textbook, you got to have it. You got to try to sell it to schools because they're the ones who's interested.
Mm-hmm.
Blood, violence, and blood, violence, and sex is like those are the books that are selling in the African American market. But that ain't my kind of book.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm a realist. I try to stick to reality themes, and so doing that just limits me in terms of book sales, right? Because even if you walked it into, and I have, even if you walk things into a publisher, their first criteria is how much money can I make?
Yeah, they're looking at
How much money can I make
right.
off this book?
They're looking at units.
They're looking at units.
Yeah.
Selling to the open market, Amazon open market is easier sell for them if it's romanticized. So if you have a book that's totally sex and romance, they can sell that, and they can sell it for $8.50, $10, because they know they can get a lot of sales out of that. But if you got a book that's just information based, then that's a limited market.
Right. Right.
You only have the libraries, the museums, the schools, that kind of thing. Education. But education is controlled. Like
Right.
I mean, all that. I mean, what you get to learn. Like I had a friend say that this book that I got right here should be a textbook. But you'll never get into that market with this because they, it's a controlled
Well, it's too
market.
too many factors. Number one, you're going against the stereotype. You're talking about successful people,
Right.
and so that's not
Right. And one of the first things they look at is your credentials. Are you a PhD? You know what I'm saying? You want to get into the education, you got to show me. You got to show me something. We don't care how good the book is. And if you don't have that backing, like Harvard, Yale, Princeton, I'm a graduate of Harvard or Yale or Princeton, and I wrote a book. Hey, somebody's interested. But if you're a graduate of Cheney, like, well, yeah, okay, good. Congratulations, and we wish you the best. And you keep it moving. But as I said before, every piece I do to me is a piece of art. So I don't care if you don't like it. I don't care if somebody buys it. Somebody's gonna buy it, but I don't care. That's not my
right. So you're not looking for a mass audience.
No, if it happens, it happens. You know what I'm saying? If it happens.
Hold up the book so we can see it. See the cover. And tell us how people can get copies of it and more information about it.
Okay.
It's signature, legendary African American distinctive signatures.
Right. They can get it. They can get it through every way that they normally get books, because it's listed on Amazon. It's listed at Barnes and Noble. It's listed. My publisher, or I would say printer, who's doing print on demand for me, is Book Baby. They also have a bookstore. It's listed there. I've also solicited a promotions person for the first time, because normally I don't do that. I try to do my own. But this time I said, well, it's like the doctor or the lawyer trying to represent himself. So I hired this woman out of Texas who's going to attempt to do some promotion for me. She claims she could do it. I'm gonna give her a shot at it.
All right, what's the cost of the book?
$30.
Okay. You've done graphic work. You've done historical research. You do, like you said, things that interest you and that you're passionate about. So what's your next project? Where are you going from here?
African American artists.
Oh, okay.
Philadelphia, African American artists. And see how far back I can go to find whether or not they were documented artists. I mean, I could always find the current African American artists in the city of Philadelphia. I know quite a few of them.
Right, but you travel in
But
some of their circles,
yeah,
right?
But I want to go back. I want to go back to the 1800s, or even further back, if I can find them, and document them as Philadelphia artists, and then work my way back up to the current, so that there's a perspective. Because I have a friend that constantly says that the millennial audience doesn't quite get that they stand on the shoulders of historians, historical people. They think they did it on their own.
Right.
And so he said, and his vibe was, well, what they do, he said, the problem isn't that they stand on the shoulders. They recognize that it's that they're up there with sledgehammers trying to knock down their very foundation. And so for me, I need to, and it'll be historical and education process for me too, because I want to see who these artists are.
Right.
And who are they, and how well entrenched, because there's a lot of well-known artists that are historically bestsellers in their art that came from Philadelphia. Who knows until you find out, right? So that's that, like I said, it's so when I finish it, it'll be another piece of art that I did.
Right.
And
Well, getting back to this current piece, who are some of the people you featured, and tell us some of the reasons why you picked. Just give me 4 people and then tell me why you picked them.
Okay, Cab Calloway.
Heidi ho.
Howdy ho. Okay, he's he was. See, some of those particular artists who were actually musicians and entertainers, finding their signature was a little easier because they signed autographs. And you can go to autograph houses online and literally purchase something that Cab Calloway signed. And I would just lift it off of there and use it. That's his signature. Hattie Mae Daniel. She was the first African American to get a Academy Award. Who knew that? Unless you know.
Right.
And let alone James Baldwin, who most folks all know. And then, like I said, when I go back, you got Miles Davis, you got Pearl Bailey, Lena Horne. See, the entertainers was the easy ones.
Right.
The hardest ones are the ones who are not legendarily known.
Like who?
Let me look through it, because I can tell you. I'm sort of. For example, Lewis Hamilton. Now somebody said, well, who's Lewis Hamilton? Well, if you follow auto racing, Lewis Hamilton he drives Formula One, and he's an African American that is the #1 driver in the world. Who knows that? So individuals like that, once I find out who they are and what they're doing, it sort of pushes me to make sure I get them in here.
Right.
So that not only you see their signature, but you know something.
Yeah, you tell their story.
Yeah, I tell their story, man. Octavius Catto.
We have a common thread with Octavius Catto because we both went to Cheney, graduated from Cheney.
Right.
And he was the principal of the ICY, Institute for Color.
Lucy Parsons.
Okay, who's she?
She was one of the first African American laborers. She represented she organized labor for women, basically. And she was out of Texas and Ohio. I mean, she was just formidable person in her own right. You know what I mean? And when I found out, who she was, she had to be in the book. Or Kamala Harris, obviously. She was the last insert, by the way, because the book was actually finished 2.5 years ago. But I was trying to wait for financing. Like it takes money, and then I'm trying to figure out, I'm not sitting these books on the floor anymore. I'm not doing that anymore. What are you going to do with this project? And each book finances itself. So it finances, like, whatever I get from this, the reward I get from the signatures book will do the artist book. And it may take me 5 years to put this together because I'm off and on. I still work for clients, but I'm off and on. So I fit my stuff in between making the donuts to get paid.
All right, give us some contact information in case some people want some more information about this book and some of your other projects that you've done.
Okay, well, they could always go to firstimpressionsbooks.com, which all my books are this book because I'm waiting for the promotions person.
Now, can they purchase the books
Well,
from the website?
They will, but they will be really directed to book Baby.
Right. Okay.
Or you go to Amazon, or go to Barnes and Noble, or go to Kmart. I mean, they're going to be in all the. It's listed in all these places. So if you went there now and asked for the book, they would basically they're going to call Book Baby, and Book Baby will do a print on demand and send you the book. But the level I'm at right now is as it relates to promotion and Amazon and all that. It's like all in a limbo, because what Amazon waits for is to see response, right? So they know I'm listed because of the ISBN number. Book Baby has listed me with all these people. So if these people want the book, they would immediately. Now, if they get, so let's say Amazon gets 100 people that want the book, then Amazon says, okay, now we're warehouse. So they'll call Book Baby, tell them to print them up, like maybe 200 books. Now it's on their floor in their distribution center, so it's quicker. So when they say you can have it overnight, they mean that.
Right. Or same day in some cases.
Or same day, right? Absolutely. So it's all about response at this point. And from the information that Book Baby gave me was that there's a 4-week, 1 month response period that Amazon and all other distributors look for, right? So response, so that and if the response is at a certain level, then they literally order the books from Book Baby, and that means they'll be sitting on their floor, so it's easy, so to be sitting on their shelves. So let's say if you go to Kmart and you ask for this book, they'll go to their, they'll type in the ISBN number, it comes up, and they'll ask the person, do you want the book? They say yes, they pay for it, and the Book Baby ship it directly to them. But let's say that happens, let's say in a week they get 25 or 30 people wanting that book, then now they know that it needs to be sitting on their rack for quicker sales. So, promotion is part of the key, but it's not, like I said, it's not a driving force for me because I'm not looking. It ain't a money thing. You know what I mean? I know I'll make money from the book. I already know that. I mean, I've had 50 books here at the house. Well, it's like I tell most people, after your family and friends purchase the book, where do you go from there, right? You got. That's why I'm glad I don't have books sitting on the floor.
Right.
Because your family and friends will support you. So you'll sell as many as you have family and friends, right? Then once you get past that level, you got to have some kind of marketing situation of what you're trying to do. Like right now, I'm dealing with the Smithsonian because I had a friend say that this book should be in the Smithsonian. Well, that's easy to say, but harder to do. So, you gotta, there's folks out there trying to reach out to people in Washington that they know is hooked up with the Smithsonian or the African American, and they're trying to. See, it's easier if you got somebody to help you walk it through than you have to go through the diversity stuff, fill out the applications, get on a list, send the stuff to them. They may not view it for a month or 2 months, but if the book should be there now, it should be there now, and only an individual who's connected can make that happen. So I'm trying to work on that part too. So, and let alone the like there's conventions.
Yeah.
There's library conventions.
Right.
I mean, to get a booth in a library convention, good God, God bless you. If you want to spend 10 grand, you got that kind of money to sit there and wait. Now, I'm sure if I spend 10 grand, I'm going to get some feedback. I'm going to get some kind of feeling. Right. But I don't have that kind of money. Like I said, I'm not after the money, so why am I in that? Why go in a hole over something that if somebody wants it and can pick it up, can make it happen, I don't have to go that route. I can just get listed, and that's basically, like I have a promotions person now, Yeah, basically, I just hired yesterday. Like, she claims she has the reach of over 200,000 people, and she comes out of the publishing industry. And she can place me where she believes that the reach is there.
Right, right.
Well, that remains to be seen. Let's see. I hired her, I paid her, and let's see what happens.
Okay, all right. Okay, is there anything that you specifically haven't covered that people need to know about this book or First Impressions or Rubin Benson?
Well, first impressions as a graphic design firm, I guess, quote unquote, maybe still exists, but not really. Because like most things, I'm 75 years old. I'm downsizing. I'm getting away from, why am I paying all these taxes? You know what I mean? Extra taxes. That's literally hooked up to First Impressions Inc. And so I'm trying to downsize away from that. So it's a sole proprietorship that, I don't have to walk my money through not First Pennsylvania, but Citizens Bank, the corporate taxes and all that. That ain't necessary anymore. And so, based on that alone, I'm trying to just generate just substantial income just to keep my family going. I'm not, like I said, I hate to keep saying that, but it's not really, a financial money situation. I'm basically still trying to do art, but just in another form.
Right. Okay, brother. Appreciate taking out some time from your busy schedule.
I appreciate you asking.
All right.
All
All right, man.
right, thank you.
But give us your contact information one more time and the how to go to Book Baby so we can spur some interest.
It's a twofold thing. If you go through Book Baby is direct. So, but if you go through, I would prefer. This is preference, by the way. I would prefer you to go to Amazon and request it. And if I get enough requests, then I get a different kind of launch because they see the concern. They see the people that want the book, and so they'll up the ante. And
Okay, so give us the title of the book again, so people can specifically ask for that.
Right, well, it's simple. Signatures. It's distinctive, legendary, distinctive signatures of African Americans.
Okay.
And their short bios.
Okay. All right, man. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.